Hi everyone, it's Tamara here with another card making tutorial. This time I'm again using the stamp set from Streamside Studios, Chocolate Covered Strawberry Cows. I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring of the little cow and then some ink blending for the background. So let's get started. So I've printed off the cow with the string of hearts on some Copic Expresso cardstock. I was initially going to use some of these strawberries, but in the end I don't end up using them. And I grabbed out this sentiment that comes with the set as well. I'll be using the Perfect Pool Water Stencil from MFT. I thought it looked kind of like cowhide-like, so I thought that'd be really good for doing some ink blending for the background to match in with my cow. I've grabbed out my Make Art Station and my Dome Sponge applicators. I'm just going to add my white smooth cardstock to that and just work out which side to put my stencil down and just put those magnets down to hold that in place. I will be using Ground Expresso and Vintage Photo for my ink blending, so just two colours today. So I'm going to be working in circular motions with the darkest colour, the Ground Expresso, at the bottom, and then up into the Vintage Photo, and I'm going to fade that out into the white card space. So I'm just going to go back between the two colours and then just slowly lighten my hand as I go up to that white space. Just reinforce that darker colour, the Ground Expresso, at the bottom. Again, just blend that out, the two colours together, and just keeping that nice and faded up the top once we've finished ink blending. So we'll just remove the stencil and we'll set that aside to dry. So we'll start with Copic coloring. I'm going to Copic coloring it like I've previously done this, but I'm going to change up the colors and make this kind of a cream and brown cow. The last one I did was kind of like a black and white cow. So for my lightest color, I'm going to be using some E40 as my lightest color. So I'm just going in with the lightest color to work out where my shadow areas will be. And now I'm just going to bring in BV20 just to add my actual cast shadows. So obviously we'll have some on the left hand side of the face, as I'll have the sun coming from the top right, and obviously there will also be some shadows thrown from that heart garland as well. So now I'm going to blend that out with the E70, just kind of working through to that white space just with light flicking motions. We'll go underneath where that heart banner is and his legs. And then we'll come in with the E41 to blend that out. And just going to blend that out into that white cardstock to get our highlight with our final color, the E40. And I'm just going to leave a little bit of white cardstock showing to kind of make sure this cow is just nice and light, so it looks kind of very creamy. So we'll just lightly flick that out, and we've got all our coloring of the main part of our cow done. So now we'll come in and do the spots and the hair. So I'm going to be going in with my lightest color again, the E74, to work out where my shadow areas will be. So I'm just finding all those little spots that are on this little cow, and I'll do the tail as well with the same color, and we'll do that little belly as well. Now we'll come in with our darkest color, the E79, to put our shadow in. So obviously everything will kind of be shadowed over to the left hand side of the top, and obviously where anything else throws some shadows. And we'll come in with our next color, the E77, to blend that out, and then bring in our final lightest color again that we started with, which is our E74, to blend that fully out into our white cardstock. So a final pass through. Now we've got a nice little shiny highlight on the hair, and we'll also have it on the little spots of this beautiful little cow. Just fill that in completely, just making sure we're getting a nice blend out from our other colors. So just kind of work in those kind of little circular motions to make sure we get a nice blend. Don't forget that little tail at the end. Now for the ears and the little nose, I'm going to use some other brown markers and some reds. So E93 is the darkest. We'll blend that out with the R01 and then the R000 to get a really nice soft kind of pinky look. For the ears, I'm going in with just 2 colours, and I'll do the hooves the same way. E81 is my darkest, and we'll blend that out with the E50. Now for the hearts, I'm going to just make them red. So I'm going in with the darkest colour, the E08. Blend that out with the R17. So kind of go over that R8 because that's just going to throw our shadow that we need. Then go in with the R14 to blend out the R17. Just going up into that highlight, the white space, which with the R12 as our highlight colour. It's going to flick up from where that R14 ends up into the R12. And now to just make sure I've got a nice smooth blend and we've got that nice kind of dark shading down the bottom, I'm going to go in with all the colours again, blending that E8 out with the R17. Now the R14, still just leaving that little highlight space up the top for our R12 to go in. So we've got a nice bright highlight up the top of that little heart garland. And that's all the Copic colouring done. I've got all my elements ready to go. Now that my ink blended panel is ready and dry, I'm going to cut that out with a stitch rectangle die. With our little cow, I wanted to have the sentiment down below, so I'm going to cut that out entirely with a oval die, making sure I hold it right up the top so that I can have that banner sitting just underneath it, so it's over the top of that oval. Now with our little sentiment, I've just grabbed a banner die and I'm going to run that through our die cutting machine. So I'm just going to put this oval die around our little cow and make sure that it's centered and nice and high up the top so we can have our banner die underneath. Just going to use some washi tape to hold that in place while I run it through my die cutting machine. Now I do normally have this winder on the other side, but I've got it on the left. I normally am right-handed, but that still works going on that side. And we'll just do the same with our banner die. Grab some washi tape, and I just find the washi tape really helps hold this in place. And we just want to make sure it's even on both ends. Pop the top on and we'll just run that through our die cutting machine again. And now we've got our little sentiment banner all ready and cut out, ready to go. Now when I've placed this down here, I thought this little cow needs a little bit of grounding. So I've grabbed out my brown markers again, the same that I used to colour up the little patches on our cow. And I'm just going to put some dirt in for this little cow to stand on, just using those same colours. So a darker colour kind of under where the shadow is, and then flicking that out with the E77 and E74. Now when I popped this on the front, I just thought it was kind of getting a little bit lost on that background. So I wanted to kind of add a little bit of a background in brown to kind of match in with our brown elements. And also I've grabbed out a bit of a larger stitched banner die, and I'm going to cut them both out in this kind of brown cardstock to match in with our background. So I'm just going to pop those little holes out once I've got that through my die cutting machine. And now this kind of just gives it that little bit, it's not a large amount, but it just gives that little bit of contrast to our background. And we've got our little sentiment strip with our brown now behind to kind of make that little white sentiment strip pop also. So I'm going to just grab out some glue now and attach our white sentiment strip onto our brown. And you're just kind of lining it up with that stitching that goes all around the outside. So it's very easy to line this up and make sure that's nice and centered. So now we're ready to construct our card. I've got this little brown cardstock for a matting behind our ink blended panel, and then that would sit onto our white card base. So I'm going to get some glue on the back of our ink blended panel and just pop that onto our brown cardstock, just making sure I've got no glue on my fingers. Give that a good press down. Make sure I'm putting this on the right side of our card. And again, I've put some glue on the back of that, and we'll get that all glued down, and I'll just pop that under a heavy book while we work on our other elements. So with our sentiment strip, I'll just put a little bit of glue in the middle where it will sit over our oval. We'll get that attached to make sure that's nice and lined up on the front of our image. Just making sure that's centered. It's a little bit difficult with the difference in the little frame, but just kind of, I just like to stand up and make sure and look from above, and it helps you see that everything is lined up. And I've grabbed out some foam tape, so I'll just put that all along the back of our little image panel, and we'll also put a little bit on either end of that banner to make sure that's nice and supported once we get that onto our card front. Now our card's nice and dry, and I've taken off the release paper on the back of our image panel. I'm just going to use my reversible tweezers because it helps me make sure I can see where I'm putting it without my hands getting in the way. So I'm just going to have it kind of not centered perfectly top to bottom, but definitely centered from the left and the right, but just slightly higher up on my panel. Now just making sure that that's straight before I give that a good press down. And this is the finished card for this tutorial. These little cows are so gorgeous, and I think you could just use them for a multitude of things. I'm actually thinking of using this for a Mother's Day card, as Mother's Day is coming up shortly here in Australia. I hope you've enjoyed this card making tutorial. If you have, please hit the like button, and if you'd like to see any future videos, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.